Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Annapolis Planning Commission. We have quite a crowd tonight, so we will try to accommodate everyone. First, we're going to go through a little bit of housekeeping by calling the roll. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Waldman.
Present.
Mr. Bellamy.
Present.
Ms. Butler.
Present.
Mr. Svakianudis.
Present.
Mr. Riley.
Present.
And Mr. Cumming.
Present.
We are only missing Mr. Pline. We have on our agenda the continuation of a hearing that began on Zoom of an application for a home that is larger than 3,250 square feet in the Eastport Conservation Area. The public hearing was held open. We're going to continue that public hearing, and the applicant may have a few words to say at the beginning, and then we will move into public testimony. Because of the number of people here, and I presume most of you would wish to, many of you would wish to speak, I'm going to try to limit everybody to no more than 3 minutes. If, on the other hand, several of you wish to combine your time behind somebody who has more extensive comments, I think that we can allow that and we can be flexible. Please do not be repetitive. We're here to hear facts. There's certainly emotions behind many of the facts, but we're really here to hear facts. Our job tonight is to look at the guidelines for homes that are over 3,250 square feet in that conservation district. We are not here to litigate, to explore, to look into why or how or for what reasons a permit was issued. That is irrelevant to our job tonight. If we find ourselves wandering into that territory, I will perhaps gavel things irrelevant. We are here to determine if this home fits into the neighborhood context of the 500 block of 6th Street. We are not here to make a decision based on emotion or sympathies or for any other reason. That's why we're here tonight. So we want to hear facts. We don't, we all have hearts, but please do not try to tug at our heartstrings. Okay? So I might have to repeat myself as we go along through this evening, but we will try to proceed just as well as we possibly can. There are 2 other items on the agenda. If those parties are here, I would respectfully recommend that you take a second look at whether you want to stay here. I'm more than happy to continue it, those items. If I get the concurrence of my colleagues on the commission, we might have a Zoom meeting later in November, or we could continue it until the 1st of the December early meeting. But if you're here and you're paying people to be here, I would suggest that you think twice about it, because we may not get to you. And if we do get to you, we may not have many brain cells left. So that's my recommendation. You can do what you wish and let me know as things proceed. Okay? All right. So I think we're going to begin with bringing us, the applicant may have a few new items to introduce, and then I think we're going to proceed to the public hearing. Okay? Oh, when you come to the podium to speak, write your name and your address. That's all we need, right? And an email address if you want to put it in. But your name, your address, and your email on the tablet, which is there. Correct. Okay. That's will not be given to any form of federal law and state or county or city law enforcement. Okay. It's just here for our records to know who spoke and how many and so forth. Okay. And to, if necessary, to align it up with the taped proceedings of tonight. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. I think we can begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trip Fulton on behalf of the applicant this evening, Gerald Hyman. We left off the October hearing in the middle of the public comment portion of this application. I'm going to allow it to resume in just a moment. But before I do, I'd like to touch on two items that directly relate to public comment, what they mean, and also the letter that's been circulated from the one commissioner that's not here this evening, Mr. Alex Pline. As a reminder to the commission, I cannot cross-examine anyone who offers public comment on this application. Rule 9.5 of this commission's rules of procedure make that absolutely clear. It provides that, and I quote, an applicant may not directly question a testifying member of the public. That's totally fine. I'm okay with that. To my knowledge, no individuals who have offered public comment have done so under oath, and they are not formally opponents or protestants in this case. They are simply people offering their thoughts on this application with the time allowed by this commission. That being the case, there are materials that have been referenced, and there are additional materials that have been sought for inclusion in the record for the first time just this evening in writing that I've never seen before, including first and foremost a purported survey of ridgeline heights along this 6th Street block face. It's been referenced during the public comment period, and now it's been relied upon by Mr. Pline in his letter to these commissioners. No survey has been introduced in this case. This survey I'm referring to has been referenced by one public commenter, Tobias Sullivan, but he didn't complete the survey. We haven't heard from anyone who did prepare the survey, and perhaps most importantly, no survey has been submitted in accordance with this commission's Rule 912, which provides that, and I quote, any member of the public who wishes to bring to the Planning Commission's attention at a public hearing any professional studies, analyses, or other such documents shall submit such documents at least 14 days in advance. That never happened. This survey was never submitted 14 days in advance. As far as I can tell, this proceeding is seeing it for the first time as of 15 minutes ago. Instead, we have bits and pieces, parts of this survey superimposed into certain written public testimony, and I can't cross-examine whoever prepared it. I can't know where these pieces of the survey came from, how they were prepared. I can't verify and examine the methods and the techniques used to take these measurements and whether the preparer is in fact licensed and in good standing. I don't know whether his or her work has ever been challenged, and patently, I don't know how this survey came to be. And so as this public comments portion of the application continues, I respectfully request that this commission remember that these individuals that are showing up and are in line to offer public testimony are not parties to this case. They are not under oath, and I can't question anything that they throw out or offer to this planning commission. I just don't have that ability. That does not make anything that they say rock hard fact, because I can't challenge it. And that's where Mr. Pline's letter becomes a bit problematic for the applicant. First, and just for the record, it is by its very terms not a vote on this application. Unfortunately, Mr. Pline is not here. This application is not over. This public hearing is not over. And Mr. Pline is not here to consider the remaining parts of this case. I think he actually acknowledged as much at the end of his letter. It's just not a vote. It can't be a vote, and he can't vote if he's not here to hear the full application. And second, while Mr. Pline states that our application would satisfy all sections of the code, which I appreciate, he does go on to state except for one. And the one criteria in his mind that he thinks we don't meet is A, a criteria for the department to consider and make findings on, not the Planning Commission, which I will get to later this evening. But more importantly, B, it's a position that is totally reliant on a survey that I can't cross-examine. In other words, we have a premature voiced vote by a commissioner that is not entitled to take a vote, relying totally on a survey that I can't challenge. And again, from someone that's not here. Candidly, I don't know why Mr. Pline wrote this. He's aware he can't be there. He's aware he can't vote, yet from wherever he is, he's seemingly trying to influence other commissioners' vote on an erroneous interpretation of the code before this case is even over. Frankly, I find it prejudicial, and I think this material does not belong in the record. I don't believe any material in writing that has been offered tonight for the first time belongs in the record. And as before the public comment period resumes, I will just say one more time, please keep in mind that anything that is offered from that podium, I cannot challenge. So you must question the authenticity of it, because I can't. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would allow the public comment period to resume.
Well, hopefully, we will ask questions about evidence which is introduced, okay? And at the end, you will have a chance to repeat questions that perhaps should have been asked, okay? Cross-examination is not appropriate for a circumstance like this. Mr. Pline's comments came in as a citizen's comments because he acknowledged that he couldn't vote, but he listened to everything and was present at the first hearing, and those are just a citizen's comments. We take them for what they're worth. Similarly or analogously to experts, we don't swear in experts. We take their testimony and their evidence for what we think it's worth, and we apply the credibility that we think is appropriate to anybody who has an expertise and testifies pursuant to that expertise. When we get to matters of the survey, we'll determine whether it was in fact introduced during the public comment period before the hearing. So, anything else?
Nothing, except for I appreciate your comments. Materials that are submitted so late, I appreciate that I may be able to question them to some degree later on this evening, but it directly reflects how we prepare for these things. I'll leave it at that.
I understand that, and if more time is necessary, a hearing can also always be continued.
Understood.
Thank you. All right. So,
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Sir, who received those materials besides yourself?
I have no idea.
Do we have copies of what he's referring to?
not yet.
Not yet?
No, they haven't been introduced from the podium,
Okay.
and when they are, I'll distribute them.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Okay, so now we can begin public comment portion. We make no distinction between who's for or against. What we want to hear is relevant comment, relevant fact, relevant testimony that we can use to help us make our decision. All right? Who's up first? Well, if nobody comes up, I may just cancel the public hearing then. And we can all go home early.
I'm happy to go first,
All right.
Chairman. I'll be short. I already signed.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Nadine Chen. I live at 521 Burnside Street in Annapolis, which is to the rear of 518 6th Street. Kim, I already signed the clipboard, so I don't think I need to sign it again. I did have quite a bit of testimony, but I'm going to keep it really short. I am a member of the Annapolis Board of Appeals. I'm not here as a board member. I'm here to share my thoughts about this case in view of my experience as a board member. And I want to make it clear I was not part of the case. I recused myself. I distanced myself from the appellants out of courtesy to the applicant. And so I'm just appearing before you now because You are a different umbrella of legal review. In my mind, you have a very simple question before you. You have a 3-story house that does not meet the code. I think that's been shared with you. I do believe that there is room for you under the code that you can lower this house to a 2.5-story house. But what I really want to say, based on my experience as a Board of Appeals member, is I want to urge this commission to examine all of the information that you've been provided and to fulfill your responsibility as an oversight citizen body to undertake the critical governing role of providing a balanced decision for both the applicant as well as the citizens. This is what we do as a board, as a commission, relative to P&Z decisions. I also want to end with your decision as a commission will set a precedent, a legal precedent. If you decide to approve a 3-story house, then 3-story houses are going to go up throughout the R2NC district. And in my mind, that just simply isn't right. So I ask you, please make a reasonable, balanced decision on behalf of both the citizens and the applicants in this case. Thank you.
My name is Arlene Wells, and I'm going to read a statement that my daughter wrote. She can't be here tonight in support of Mr. Hyman, and I will write I have written my name there, but I will also put my name here so you have it. I have a few copies I've made of this. Mr. Hyman has it, and I'm going to just read a paragraph. The rest of it I will pass out to you because I don't want to be redundant and I don't want to have feelings in this. But I noticed a part in here that was relevant to this. The notice of hearing sign posted on Mr. Hyman's property states that the proposed dwelling in excess of 3,250 square feet, but so is 515 Horn Point Drive and 519 First Street, 414 Chester Avenue, and they should be added to the list. It also concerns about the square footage of 5 Horn Point Court and 8 Horn Point Court and 6 Eastern Avenue. It appears that we are selective in the objections. That's all I wanted to say, and Mr. Hyman has copies of this and he can pass it out. I will add my name to the list. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Marcellus Butler, 409 Chester Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland. I know we say stick to the facts, but I'll just give some couple grounding points. I am a Maryland's registered licensed home builder, new construction. Also on an MHIC license that allowed me to do renovation projects. I'm a developer. I've been a developer for over 30 years. I've developed multiple projects in the Eastport area, from ground up to renovation projects, development owned, developed for other people. And this house here that is being built right now fits the character of Eastport. There was a comment that was made on the Zoom call on the last meeting about character, front porch on the second level. Well, I developed a project in Eastport over 20 years ago, 405, 407, and 403 Chester Avenue. It was a 3-unit ground up, new construction, townhouse development. And on the middle unit, 405, we have a walkout balcony on the front deck. So when we talk about the character of this house, it's too tall, it's too wide. This house fits the characters of Eastport. And those are the facts. And I would ask you guys to use your best judgment in granting approval for Mr. Hyman to move forward with building this house. One more thing I forgot to add. In my whole development process of developing in Eastport, I've dealt with the Eastport Civic Association, been through site design review, all that. I've never seen a project in Eastport take this long to be developed. Never in my 30 years of development, I've never seen a project in Eastport take this long to be developed. Never. I don't know what it is, but I think it's time to move this forward. And I thank you for this opportunity to speak to you guys.
Good evening
Let's
to everyone.
calm down our clapping and cheering. This is not an athletic contest.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janice Parker. I live at 411 Hilltop Lane. I've worked for Maryland District Court for 30 years. I arrived here tonight at 6 o'clock. 6:30, I was allowed in the building. My brother and I, we had a seat. I say, let's be fair. A gentleman came from the audience. Sir, the piece of paper that you asked for, it was given to certain people here tonight. My brother and I witnessed it. You have cameras, you can see it. It should have been given to everyone. I say, let's be fair. And I'm here for Mr. Hyman and his family.
My name is Jane Lawrence. I live at 519 Burnside, across Howard Dignan Alley from the applicant's property. I've crossed out a couple of paragraphs about why this took so long. So I'm just trying to follow your instructions. The applicant, Mr. Hyman, has every right to build his property, build his house. He can legally build a house larger than 3250 down the street at 600 6th Street
is a house that's bigger than 3250. What he does not have the right to do is build a house that violates the Annapolis City Code. Whatever one's opinion, the Eastport overlay is the law. I want to address the survey, and Mr. Tobias Sullivan can address it further, but that survey was put in comments. It's not real clear for residents how to get attachments on the record. So early this week, I think Tuesday morning, I sent the survey to Ms. Consoli, Mr. Jakubiak, and Mr. Lifshinsky. I'm not sure we're here as parties. Mr. Fulton is representing Mr. Hyman, and that's great. But we're residents. We did a survey by a professionally, I'll let Mr. Tobias talk about Mr. Sullivan, but let me just go on before I bring him up. On September 25th of this year, the applicant's architect submitted to this commission a document stating that the average ridge height was 30.3 feet. 2 weeks later, the applicant submitted a new estimate that said the average ridge height was 27 feet. That's still wrong based on the professional survey that we had done. 27 feet still overestimates the average ridge height, which is 24.5. That's the law. In the R2NC, you cannot build a new construction or renovate higher than the average ridge height, or 26 feet. You can get, I understand, from footnote 9, and that is on my handout, circle 2. And that average tolerance is allowed upon a finding that the tolerance is necessary to provide adequate living space. Now, kudos to Mr. Pline in absentia 2 weeks ago at the hearing before you. He questioned whether you could have a tolerance for height when the first and second floor are over 3250. That's adequate living space. That's a lot of space. So I would just point out, probatively, I think you can say the fact that the applicant's architect lowered the estimate by 3 feet 2 weeks ago, it's an estimate. There's only one survey that's been done. So the idea of asking for a tolerance, it's not. We're not in the process where you ask for the tolerance. Architects will tell you, ask at the beginning of the process. Here's my ridge height. I need 10% in order to have adequate living space. We're now 4 years later, and this tolerance would not survive legal challenge because not just footnote 9, but it would exceed the authority of the director to provide it. I'm just going to make one last point. On circle 3, you will see that under the R2 and C, the facades that are visible to the public have to be reviewed. This house is unusual because there's the block face of 600 6th Street, which it sits on, and then behind it is Howard Dignan Alley. And that is on the city website. It's city maintained street. It is a thoroughfare which you may have used to get from Severn, Chesapeake to Chester. This is a picture of indicating the bulk and mass from Howard Dignan Alley, a public street. I am not going to go any further. You're going to hear from architects, but I would just say that in my main testimony, which I put in, I pointed out the staff report is pretty thin, and it is thin, I think. There are a lot of things that don't fit. So, thank you.
Yeah, I am, just to see whether I haven't distributed. Well, I just want to see any judgment. I'm not having to distribute. Because it may be not all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've got two matters I'd like to bring to the commission's attention. If she is suggesting that this survey be admitted as part of the record, I will remind the commission that Rule 912 is very clear.
Mr. Fulton, I'm well aware.
Okay. I won't repeat that then. My second point
Please
is that Mr. Sullivan here has already testified for about 20 minutes in the first hearing.
Okay.
Not sure he's afforded a second bite at the apple here.
Yes.
In fact, I would object to his testimony.
Fine. Overruled.
Okay.
Have I made an adequate request to have it on the record?
No, I don't think there'll be questions. Okay, but listen. Okay. Ms. Lawrence has provided done a lot of work and provided a lot of information to the commission, and she was providing factual information, okay?
That's fine, but you said 3 minutes. Let's keep it to
And I
3
also
minutes.
said
I'll
that-
put the timer down.
Mr.
Mr.
Sullivan,
Sullivan?
please just keep it to 3 minutes if you can. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you. Yes, I'm Tobias Sullivan. I live at 5226 Street. I'm the house immediately to the left. I'm also an architect, and a lot of my work is in Eastport. I sent something over earlier today as an amendment, which, as I understand from Mr. Meekins, was sent to the chair. It's at the chair's discretion whether or not to hand that out.
Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions to save time?
Certainly.
Are you referring to a survey by Mr. Jupitz?
I am.
Okay. Is that same information in the information that you provided 2 weeks ago at the hearing and submitted in written comments?
Yeah, it was referenced specifically.
Okay. But it was not in the same format that what we received tonight?
Correct. That was just a narrow.
Let me ask you some questions.
Sir.
What you talked about 2 weeks ago, were you relying upon the survey that was provided by Mr. Jupitz?
Yes.
Okay. Was he who hired Mr. Jupitz?
A group of neighbors, myself included. I officially signed the check, if you want to say that.
Okay.
But yeah.
Are you aware of what methods or techniques he used in order to provide the information to you?
The specific surveying machinery he used?
Yes. In other words,
No.
did he actually go out and measure from the elevation, the ground elevation, to the top of the ridge heights of the houses on 6th Street?
I saw
Or did
his.
he take it from some sort of public database?
No, I saw his crew out there. They were using, theodolites, whatever the.
Yeah.
More importantly, is that
No.
I
was that part of a request from the commission? Was there any thing that was submitted into public record? Is there any reason that we would even consider that? Why was that submitted? I just find that it's an after the fact. It's not relevant to today's conversation. I'm sorry.
I disagree, sir. We had that survey commissioned because we questioned the height of the foundation that Mr. Hyman had built. It appeared to be well above the approved height that's in the grading plan, which trumps everything. So I sent my concerns to the city in July of 2024, and I also sent this survey to the city in July of 2024. They've had it for, year and a half, and I've yet to receive a reply to that email. They've completely ignored it. And actually, if I could point out, that was a matter before it came up before the Building Board of Appeals. On the last page of this, there's a survey from the actual surveyor that Mr. Hyman hired, who later recanted the testimony she gave, or rather, she backed away from the survey that she provided at that hearing and changed the numbers to be closer in alignment to reality. So I find it very relevant to this hearing.
So let me just for purposes of our record keeping here, when you testified and provided written comment before the hearing last time, okay, was your information based upon this survey by Mr. Jupitz?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and to your knowledge, they actually measured from the elevations to the ridge heights of all of the homes on one side of 6th Street, the block face.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I have a quick question. I think the person before you said she tried to get that into the record for us today, earlier in the week. Does anyone know, Ms. Consoli or anyone else, why it didn't get in the record?
Well, the rule is if they're documents, and these are clearly documents,
Right.
okay? This is clearly matters that are not just comments off of opinions of people. These are mechanical engineering.
Right, professional documents.
Okay. And the rule is that they need to be provided a couple of weeks beforehand so that people can get a chance to look at stuff. We get far too much at the last minute.
Mostly public comment.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
You
No,
understand?
right. I know, but we've also taken documents at a hearing. So I think I'm interested in seeing the survey because I was very interested in your testimony. So I thought today when we got our public comments, it would be there and I would be able to see the survey and look at it in comparison to your. So are we actually going to get the comments admitted?
It
I mean,
wasn't
the survey.
submitted in time.
You,
It was not submitted. 2
you
weeks
might
prior
also
to the
ask-
It's
public
up to
hearing.
the chairman to decide
Mr.
whether
Fulton?
we can.
Let's not interrupt. Okay.
It's
What
absolutely
was submitted in public comment was a table.
Right.
Okay. That was submitted. There was a table of ridge heights. It was in the public hearing and it was testified to at the public hearing. On the other hand, there's no way that we can accept something which comes in at the last minute. But the point, okay,
It didn't come in at the last minute because it was submitted on 3 days ago.
the document was not submitted.
None of us have it. So it's not here.
What I'm saying is, I think they tried.
I've
to
made
get
a
it on
ruling,
record.
and the ruling is that the testimony and the written comments that were submitted 2 weeks ago are in the record. What's not going to be in the record is
It's a
this
survey.
because it was submitted late. Okay? So I'm simply trying to provide for everybody's help the foundation upon which his testimony is based. When was it done? Who did it? Who paid for it? And what techniques were used in order to come to to the conclusions that are part of the table that was submitted. Okay?
Got it.
All right. All right. Thank you, sir.
done. Or
All right.
I guess I'd just like to just very quickly on the second page, or excuse me, the first page regarding the idea that this thing is articulated anyway. And one of the other things that has complicated
Now
this.
you're talking about this document?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
well, if I'm allowed to, minus the survey.
Well,
Yeah.
It once again, this is a big hunk of information that should have been submitted to, in advance so that people have a chance to look at it and the applicant has a chance to look at it and ask questions.
Understood. Okay. I'll
Okay.
stop my comments there then.
All right.
Thank you.
I have to rule that this can't come in as well.
That's fine.
Okay. But I do have one final question. To your knowledge, when Mr. Jupitz did his survey, did he use ground elevations from a public database that was publicly available? The ground elevations.
Well, I know for a fact there's like 3 or 4 monuments within line of sight of this project. It might be some footnote on the document itself, but he is a well-regarded. In fact, it says on this elevations based on City of Annapolis datum, so he tied in somewhere to official numbers.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Can I just make a point?
What?
I think you made the point. I just want to reiterate the point.
What?
A point that it doesn't matter because the survey is not relevant to our deliberations, as far as I understand.
No,
it's not. It's not official. It was not submitted to us. We didn't have a chance to look at it. It was not part of it. I mean,
No.
was it or was it not?
My point is that it was testified to 2 weeks ago, and it was submitted as part of the written comments, the table, and that this is just a more formal surveyor's document. But
From 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
understand.
same thing.
Okay.
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 But we still don't know officially how it was done.
He just said.
He didn't prepare the survey.
He didn't prepare.
Listen,
Where's the guy that did it?
Mr. Sfakianudis,
Yeah.
we are not going to discuss this before we come to deliberations. If you have questions of a witness, you certainly may ask them, but we're not going to argue beforehand.
Okay.
Okay.
Then keep it at 3 minutes.
Okay. And Mr. Sfakianudis, I'll make that decision.
Hello, my name is William Menjivar. I am a architecture student at Anne Arundel Community College. I am here in the support of Mr. Hyman and Mrs. family. I'm going to keep my testimony to under 3 minutes, so I'll go off script. The fact is, the home is built. Yes, it might supersede the 3250 rule, which was enacted to preserve the historical characteristic of the neighborhood. Mr. Gerald's home very much does that. The street-facing facade and elevation appears to be slim and slender compared to its neighboring house, which is 512 6th Street. If you have gone out to the site for yourself to see, the home is very much larger than Mr. Hyman's. Although Mr. Sullivan's house off to the left might not be as big, Mr. Gerald's home serves well as a transitional design that really incorporates the historical characteristics you find around Eastport. I am Annapolis born and raised. I've been here my entire life and I have young ties to this community. I would love to see the Mr. Gerald's home be built and him fulfill his dream. He is not a large corporation trying to build an Airbnb. He is a man, a hardworking man trying to build his family home. So these are my remarks. I hope Mr. Hyman is served justice here.
Good evening, Commissioners. I've signed in. My name is Robert Shoemaker. I live at 515 Horn Point Drive. Thank you for this opportunity to offer my thoughts and to ask you to thoughtfully and with an open mind consider the absolute facts being presented to you tonight. And before I continue, I want to clear the record of a misstatement made by a previous speaker. It was stated that 515 Horn Point Drive is more than 3,250 square feet. And I can assure you that if you check the tax records, you'll find it's considerably less than that. If you check the tax records, you'll see that it's 2,323 square feet. I come to you as a 14-year homeowner in Eastport who has been through the process of a substantial home renovation. I understand there are technicalities and nuances that require judgment and interpretation in the code we are all bound to adhere to. The facts in dispute in this case don't come close to technicalities or nuances. There is nothing being disputed here that requires judgment or that can be described as a nuance. Square footage is square footage. Height is height. Dates of compliance items are dates of compliance items. I'm dumbfounded by the lack of regard for code adherence in this application. A physical structure exists at 518 6th Street. It's been constructed far outside the limits of the code requirements all citizens of Eastport in Annapolis are required to follow, and it's available to be seen and measured, not theorized. That this structure falls far outside the code we as citizens of Annapolis are required to follow is not a disputable item for discussion. I firmly and respectfully request that you listen carefully to the factual details others have presented and will present regarding the serious deficiencies in this application and come to the indisputable conclusion that is so seriously flawed that it must be flatly rejected. I thank you for your service to our city and for this opportunity to make this request of you.
Good evening. My name is Carmel Conity. I live at 530 6th Street, 3 doors down from the applicant. And I'm here today. I'm an engineer. I'm the chief engineer for science missions for NASA. And I had a little bit of extra time since I'm a government employee on furlough. So I decided to look at the tax records, the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation database, and I reviewed every single family residential home in the R2 NC district, and I have a spreadsheet. I didn't know about the 2 weeks beforehand rule, otherwise I would have followed it. But I did find that the average home size of those 515 homes is 2105 square feet. So the average home size on our block front is actually a little larger than that, 2135 square feet, still extreme, less than half the size of the applicant's house. And to repeat the previous presenter, square footage is square footage. Square footage correlates to mass, and it correlates to scale directly. So I also looked at how many houses are over 4,000 square feet, because this is not the only one. There are actually 13, which is 2.5% of the total that are over there. Now, many of these appear to have been built before this code came into effect, but I had no way to verify that. And many of these are the monstrosities on that's my opinion, on Eastern Avenue. About 10% are over the 3,250 square foot as well. But none of the ones that are over 4,000 square feet are on 6th Street. And there's it's a very small number. You're allowed to have over 3,250 square feet. The other point I want to kind of amplify that I heard from last time's meeting, the Spire person said that they came up with their ridge height of 27 feet by looking at bricks and siding. And I find that to be an extremely inaccurate and imprecise and unreliable method of measuring height. And I, again, I'm an engineer, but I'm not in this, not in this field. There are very inexpensive laser tools on Amazon for under $40 that would give you a more accurate reading, especially when the house is stucco 2 doors down that does not have bricks or siding. So the other point I want to amplify that has been said before, but as a government employee in particular, I feel it's essential that we are transparent, accountable, and fair and open, and that we have to hold everybody to the same standards, and we have to be transparent. So what I would like to request is, there obviously has been some procedural breakdowns around clarifying standards for verifying ridge height. I think given the technology that's available, this could be improved. I really think that we need to strengthen our oversight. And if we don't do those types of things, I think the public trust in the government will be eroded. So again, the one other point I want to make is that you can look at, I invite you to physically go and look at the structure. There is, I know the garage is out of scope of this, but that will add additional mass. And my understanding of the goal, the intent is protect neighborhood scale and livability. And I do not see how this could possibly do that. So I really think that we need to uphold the R2NC integrity, because otherwise you will be seeing a lot of homes, you will be setting a dangerous precedent. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Frank Thorpe, and I live at 94 Quarter Landing Road in Eastport. Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, first of all, thank you for working and volunteering on this commission. I am here this evening to implore you to enforce the code tonight. As a candidate for alderman, I just completed a year of campaigning. During that time, I have spoken personally, one-on-one, with more than 500 residents and many more at campaign events. One of the top 3 items that residents are really frustrated about in Eastport, and I understand across the city, is the lack of enforcement across the board, whether it be parking, speeding, short-term rentals, or the zoning code. Enforcement is hard. I get it. As humans, we want to help people out. But we all have examples in which lack of enforcement, or going along with past lack of enforcement, just causes the problem to get even worse later on. My campaign platform, including improving all the enforcement across the board. Many of the other candidates running for the city council also ran, and it appears will win, on a platform that included better enforcement of the code. The voters have spoken. The voters have elected candidates who want to improve enforcement in Annapolis. I am confident that the new city council will put in place measures to help the city staff to improve enforcement. The Planning Commission has the opportunity today to begin that process by making the hard decision and enforcing the code. Again, enforcement is hard, and that's why we are where we are today. On the contrary, if the Planning Commission will let things slide because it's too late or because of past wrongs, it will be the expected path of the future, and the City Council will have a hard time fixing it in the future. So therefore, again, I implore the Planning Commission to make the hard decision today and set this date as the beginning of fair and consistent enforcement in the city of Annapolis. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Carlos Evans. I'm not a resident of Annapolis City no more. I'm a 15-year business member in the city, operates in the city, worked for the city of Annapolis operating. I want to say in reference to some of the things that's spoken on the Zoom, some of the things spoken tonight. As she stated, 10% of the homes are over 3250. If that's not a problem for them to have it, why is it a problem now for Mr. Hyman to have it? Right. The other thing is, as spoken, I'm not sure which commission member on the Zoom brought up details showing the houses that was over 3250, which were about 5 or 6 of them on the Zoom that was displayed, wasn't a problem. The problem with this is Mr. Snowden stated last time, not to you all commissioners, it's about the people in the community doesn't want to see a black man have a home in that community on that street.
I find that irrelevant.
I know you do, but I'm just going to state the facts about it. And the problem with that is also, this has been going on too long. Too long. It's no way for 4 or 5 years we should have to be dealing with this. Every time we come up here, I can't remember his name, he gets to speak and say stuff and bring stuff to attention to try to overturn whatever. The point of the matter is the city gave these permits, the city authorized these permits who he's supposed to go to get the permits. They authorized it. This home should be built and allowed. And I hope you give justice and let that be done.
Good evening, Commission. Okay, good evening, Commission. My name is Raymond Connor. I've had an opportunity to go see Mr. Hyman's structure. Sorry?
Introduce
Can you hear me?
yourself, please.
Yeah, I said my name is Raymond Connor. I've had an opportunity to go and visit Mr. Hyman's home that he's built, and I find it to be fitting to that community. Mr. Hyman, over the last 14 years, has worked on several projects for 5 different homes that I own. All of them have been done to code. All of them have been done professionally and with integrity. So that's what I have to lend tonight. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jackie Wells. I live at 201 Severn Avenue in Annapolis, Maryland, and I am also the chair of the Eastport Civic Association's Architecture and Zoning Committee. I'm a little torn. I had a lot of testimony to give, but I want to honor Mr. Waldman's admonition about talking about facts and not about history. And actually, the beginning of my testimony, that I've crossed a lot of it out, started with, please follow the advice of Chairman Waldman and Mr. Pline to not focus on the history of this highly unusual site design review process. Please do not make your decision based on one-sided testimony by the applicant and his friends when Mr. Hyman was very involved in the process and very contributory to the length of time that it has taken for the review to occur. But we bring ourselves to today, which is what the commission is supposed to be looking at, and that is Mr. Hyman was sent by the Board of Appeals back to Planning and Zoning to address the 3250 square foot limit. And he chose, which is his right, not to reach a compromise with Planning and Zoning, even though that offer was made. Mr. Hyman has asked the Planning Commission to address only the 3250 limit, not the history of the site design review process. The 3250 limit has been in place for many years and was designed to prevent additions or new builds from exceeding 3,250 square feet. But the square feet of the first 2 floors of the applicant's house alone exceeds 3,250 and has done so from the start, even though the measurements have changed. The 2.5-story rule has been in place also for many years. The 3rd floor of the applicant's house exceeds 50% of the square footage of the 2nd floor, which is a violation of the 2.5-story rule. And it adds more square feet to the excess over 3,250. Again, level 1 and level 2 are already over 3,250. That should be enough right there. But now add a big 3rd floor, and again, you've got another problem. That 3rd floor also contributes to the oversized mass and scale. Anecdotal references to other houses that have, for example, balconies on the front of the 2nd floor and/or square footage over 3,250, when they are houses built or renovated before the R2NC code went into place and before the R2NC design guidelines were put out for people to look at as guidance when they build or add to their house. Those structures are grandfathered in, but they are no longer examples of what should be built in the R2NC Conservation District. There is precedent in the R2NC for planning and zoning to require an applicant to make a correction to an already constructed house so to comply with the R2NC code. We've seen it done where a roof was taken off and the height of a house was lowered and the roof was put back on right on Creekview Avenue in the R2NC. Removal of the applicant's 3rd story would reduce the house from 4,422 habitable square feet to 3,296 square feet. Still over the 3,250, but much closer to it. Plus, there's a finished walkout basement with square footage in excess of the 1st floor. That's not counted towards the 3,250, but there's a whole nother floor below, semi-below ground. And then there's also square footage in the detached garage. So there's a huge amount of livable space in the various structures that have been constructed by Mr. Hyman. That would also, at the same time, decrease the mass and scale of the house. This could be done by ordering the applicant to work with planning and zoning to reduce the square footage closer to 3,250 square feet. It is important for the Planning Commission to enforce the R2NC code. And I have to say, it was disturbing for me to listen to the last hearing when individuals were ready to vote, not having heard from a critical witness who you lauded in that hearing, Tom Smith. And I have spoken with Tom Smith and I have his information, but I'm not going to share it because I'm honoring what Mr. Waldman asked us to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Ma'am,
Oh, sorry.
you said there was another house where the roof was removed to comply?
Yes.
And what were the circumstances around that home? Was it approved by the city and they built it outside the lines, or what was the situation and who incurred the cost?
The plans were approved by the city, but the house was not built in accordance with the plans. Who incurred the cost was the owner of the home.
So they built outside what the city approved?
Correct.
Okay.
But again, I'd be happy to talk to you about the approval of the plans, because the approval of the plans were not done by planning and zoning.
Done.
They were pressured and ordered by, I've got the list of people.
I think that we should not go down this rabbit hole.
Okay.
Mr.
I'm happy to do it.
Who she said it
Yes,
was
city
approved by planning and zoning. I want to know who was approved
So
by.
city officials
Yeah.
there were two alder persons. There was the Office of Law, representatives from the mayor's office, and they held meetings with the planner and the applicant and his then attorney. It's not Mr. Fulton, former attorney. And they excluded the architects, and it was the Office of Law that instructed the architects, or no, I'm sorry, Mr. Hyman told his architects what the Office of Law had approved. Mr. Hyman testified to that at the first hearing.
But planning and zoning approved it at the end of the day.
They were they were forced to approve it.
Okay. All right.
Ma'am, before you leave, ma'am, you refer to a Mr.
I'm answering questions by the commissioners.
You refer to a Mr. Smith. Who is Mr. Smith?
Tom Smith was the chief of planning at Planning and Zoning at the time, and it was he who was pressured and directed to approve the plans by persons not in Planning and Zoning.
Okay.
But
We've
again,
had enough of this.
I left that out.
Enough of this. You opened it up. We've had enough. Let's return to the subject at hand. Next witness? Next person?
Good evening. My name is Barbara Beck. I'm an architect in the city of Annapolis. I live in R2NC. I've been practicing in this area since 2006. I have a copy of my resume, or, if you need that. First of all, I realize that change is inevitable. I'm an architect. I get that. We need to move on. We need to change houses to meet the needs of people. But there are also rules. There are regulations. And if we don't follow rules and regulations, then we're going to have a free-for-all, and it's going to end up looking like Houston, which has no zoning at all. So I'm just saying this because I don't want Eastport, which I love in its uniqueness and quirkiness, to end up like the suburbs or something like that.
Could we have quiet, please?
They don't like my testimony. That's fine. Eastport is unique in all of Annapolis. There's nothing like Eastport in Annapolis, which is why people want to live here. The R2NC overlay was created to keep that quirkiness, eclecticness, uniqueness, and I feel, as a resident, as an architect, we need to respect that. Even if we don't respect that, it's still the law. It's regulations. I follow the regulations very stringently. I have had numerous houses where we've had to go back to the drawing board because either the Eastport Civic Association didn't think we complied well enough with the overlay, or the city rejected it. So I understand what it means to go back to the drawing board to rework things. I also know what it is to have a house under construction and have to make adjustments to that while it's under construction because a contractor did something wrong, or the owner decided to make a change, or something like that. This house is a little bit unique. I was there when they broke ground on it, when they tore the initial house down, because I was working on the house across the street. I'm the architect for the house across the street. I just don't like the way the process has gone. I don't feel it has been transparent. The things that have been passed through the planning board is something that I have never had happen in any of my projects. So you're seeing a very upset architect here because I don't know how this is going to go forward, and it influences my work. It influences how you judge things, and it's as Frank Thorpe said, we need to enforce the rules. Otherwise, why have them? And I know that there are ways to remedy this house. Nobody's going to like that, but there are remedies. And I would say because the house is too tall, it's just too tall. I'm not saying take it down. All I'm saying is reduce the roof a little bit. Something. We can do something to make everybody happy. Give the man his big house. That's fine. He has the right to build a big house. That's it. I'm sorry. Thank you for your time. Bye.
I have a quick question.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry.
So as an architect, do you normally, when you're looking at the average ridge height on a block face, would you guesstimate the height or would you hire an engineer to do that?
I would hire an engineer. I would never, I mean, I might estimate when I'm doing schematic drawings, but to submit for permit or anything, hire an engineer. And in fact, I've had things turned back to me and told to hire an engineer at the expense of my client's expense, but we had to get an engineer to establish the front yard setback, the average ridge setback, the average ridge height.
Mm-hmm.
It's standard.
Thank you.
Okay.
Going once.
Hello, I'm Jeff Halpern, principal architect at Halpern Architects in Annapolis. Been practicing in this town since 1984. I've been through a lot of these reviews, and I've also been a reviewer for the city on the HPC projects. I've done quite a few projects in Eastport. I've gone through the normal processes in Eastport for projects. And in the past, whenever I've had to do a project in the Eastport where we had to certify heights, the city has required us to hire an engineer to certify the heights. Even on projects where I've gone out with a laser level and shot it myself, certified that I measured it from the ground up, the city has required a civil engineer to create the average height for that streetscape. That has been submitted by Tobias that shows that a respected civil engineer and surveyor has surveyed that street and has certified what the heights should be on that. They're at odds with what the drawings show from the architect. It is pretty clear that the normal process, the process of requiring a civil engineer or a certified surveyor to do the height measurements and ground coverage measurements haven't been followed in this case. I'm not going to speculate or create reasons why. That's just not my world. But when I review the code items, it's pretty clear that the 10% variance on the height should not have been granted. The language is very specific. That only should be granted in a case where there is inadequate habitable area. Well, this is a building that's considerably larger than its adjacent neighbors. I believe the architect's number was somewhere around 4,400 square feet of house without the basement. That does not constitute, that area that's being granted, that extra height is not being created to provide necessary space for adequate living, which is what the code says. It's very specific. When they talk about the mass of the building, that is the volumetrics of that building. It is how it relates to the volumetrics of other buildings around it. And while the city has and will approve buildings that are larger than adjacent structures, they've historically, on every project I've ever done, require the building to be articulated in a way that it minimizes the visual mass of the building as it stands there. And in doing so, they require that the wall planes are cut back off of the setback line in order to create clear and distinct elements that are legible and clearly understandable as distinct pieces. They've required us to cut back on the width of an element by 16 inches because they felt that was visually wider than anything that was on that block face. Well, in this case, we have something that's looks to be about 6 to 8 feet wider than any cross gable on that streetscape. Those are somewhat subjective, and when I've done reviews for HPC, there's always this little bit of a subjective quality to it. But you have to try on those subjective things to be as fair-minded and treat things equally between various applicants. I've had to review projects where a project has been built that did not conform to the drawing. It isn't always a painful thing when you have to say to somebody, look, you've built something and it's going to have to come down to meet code. In this case, we have a situation where the approval was based on faulty information. Standard normal practices were not held in terms of surveying the site and determining what the ridge heights were. Any other architect in this town would have had to do that. I don't know why that wasn't done here, but the point is that it wasn't. Evidence has been provided that wasn't done properly. I want to be clear that I don't disrespect the reviewers. It's a tough job. I've had to do it myself. You've just got to make your best call. So I'm not really trying to be disrespectful, but there's a very different set of processes and approvals that are taking place here from what has normally taken place for those of us who've done projects throughout Eastport, throughout the city. And that's been since the early 80s when I came here. We've always had this thing about contextual architecture, even before the overlay district, the standards have been there. 3 minutes? I don't. Okay. Okay.
Anything more, Mr. Halpern?
I just got thrown off my. Sorry.
I think time's up.
Okay. All right. Then thank you.
Thank you, because what you had to say was fluent, and objective. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. It's probably going to be my last time speaking as an alderwoman in the city of Annapolis. Year 19, and Ross Arnett and I are about to take our leave in the next 20 days or thereabouts. I came this evening to support Mr. Hyman, and I had no intentions of speaking. But after listening to the testimony, I felt compelled to make a couple of comments. I've known Mr. Hyman, or at least his family, for most of my life and probably all of his. I grew up in Eastport, so I really know about the character of that community before and after. I have watched things change, and my church is still in Eastport. I have much family in Eastport. It is home to me. And so to see what Mr. Hyman has been going through for the last 6 or 7 years is really heartbreaking for anybody. Because we as the city should be providing the services that will help our residents progress, improve, and live wonderful lives in our wonderful city. And I know Mr. Hyman's not the only one that is having challenges such as this. There have been many others. But he's the one that's in front of us right now. And he's the one that we can address the right and the wrong. This project should have been approved in 21. Actually, it should have been approved much earlier than that, but 21 and 23. And things kept getting in the way for right or wrong. Our staff made decisions, a previous staff, granted, made decisions about his home, and folks didn't like it, so they appealed it, and they appealed it. And that's our process. That is our process. But to what end? And who is the one who benefits the most? Is it really about community character? Really? Or are there other things? Is it just having my way or right or wrong? You know, our code is a living document. And as an alderman, I sat in that seat for 19 years, and we made changes all the time for the betterment of the community and the residents who live here. That's our objective, or at least it should be. Most of you realize that I am a teacher, a former teacher. That was my previous life. And several of my students are in the audience. Didn't come with me, but it's okay. But let me suggest that you take a field trip. And Mr. Waldman, you asked for people to come and give you facts tonight. You began your comments with nothing but the facts. And we heard a lot of facts, but we heard a lot of conjecture and third-party opinions and all kinds of other things this evening. But I challenge you to take, or to allow our planning staff to take you on a field trip to 6th Street and to other areas of Eastport so you can see for yourselves the difference between this house and so many others in that community. I think your decision may be a much easier one if you get to put your eyes on what is being discussed here. So that is my parting comment to you. I hope that you will take it seriously and do a little more research on your own. You know, we all have opinions, but look for the facts. You started out with nothing but the facts. And by going out to look at the houses, his home, you'll get the facts. Thank you.
Finlayson.
Yes, sir.
If your memory does not serve you well at this moment, I will excuse you, believe me.
Well,
but if you remember, when was the R2NC zoning overlay passed?
Oh, I have no clue.
Okay.
Alderman Arnett might know.
He might know.
When was it passed, the R2? Early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Before us, I'm afraid.
Really?
Yeah, we came on in 07.
Okay.
So we're not quite that old.
Okay. Okay.
Close. Thank you, and thank you for your service. I know it's a hard
decision. Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
Come on. Let me tell you, it ain't easy being a public servant. All right. Going once. Going twice.
Mr. Chairman, the commission's rules allow for a rebuttal, if you will. I'm not going to mince words. I've got one more gentleman, Larry Goldstein, who's another counsel to Mr. Hyman. He's got statements to make. You can either allow him to offer.
He's like anybody else. If he wants to come to the podium and speak, let him speak.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
He's not representing Mr. Hyman.
No, he's not. Wasn't
He
sure.
does seem to be fairly close to you in that you've conferred several times during this meeting.
He was asking whether or not he ought to offer his statements under this rebuttal period or under the public comment. If you had a preference, that's all I was asking.
Now is good.
And my name is Lawrence Goldstein. I only have one vocal cord, and I have cancer in the other vocal cord. So I apologize for not being able
for that.
to speak loud enough. It's funny, I've been following this case for a long time. I'll tell you, the first day I had a contact with it, on May 18th in the year 2017, shortly after noontime, I got a call from Gerald Hyman. He said, I just had a visit from an alderman, and he gave me somewhat of a hard time and asked me whether I had a permit. I said, well, what were you doing, Gerald? He said, well, I bought this house on 6th Street, and it's...
Mr. Goldstein, are you going into the past history of the plans and the back and forths,
no,
permit approvals?
No, I just wanted to tell. I wanted to tell one story to set the tone, and then all I want to do is tell you why I think the house fits in to the neighborhood and complies with the Eastport requirements. With one story first. What were you doing, Gerald? He said, well, I bought a house, and it's pretty much a tear down. It looks disgraceful. And I got my boys, and we're painting the woodwork around the windows so it won't look that bad. And suddenly, a gentleman drove right down the middle of the road, because it's a narrow street with parking on both sides, and got out of the driver's side and left the door open and came over and found out, what are you doing up there? And I said, I'm painting the windows. And he said, do you have a permit? And Mr. Hyman said, I don't believe you need a permit to paint. And then Gerald Hyman called me. At that time, I was a practicing attorney. And I came right over. And I got there while Mr. Arnett was still there. And I asked him whether everything was all right. And he sort of didn't answer. I said, sir, you understand you don't need a permit to paint. And he said, that's all right. And that concluded our conversation. Now, that happened in 2017. There were no plans then, none whatsoever. What was the problem? What was the alderman doing? What was anybody doing? The guy was painting the window of an existing house that hadn't been torn down, that hadn't been enlarged. Why was there a problem? That's the story.
Okay.
I've been following this thing since that time. I think I was the only non-party at these meetings you referred to as a listener. Anyway, I look at that block, and there is a house across street at 219 6th Street that Mr. Hyman told me that's how his house is going to look. And I looked at it, and the fascia, the front of that house, I can visualize by looking at Mr. Hyman. It's exactly a fit. The windows fit. The door fits. The roof slant fits. I hired an attorney out of my own pocket. Not an attorney, a photographer, to make a picture. The beautiful house across street that Mr. Hyman is emulating, that wants to make his house look like it. I said, Gerald, what color is your house going to be? He says, white, just like the house at 219. I said, what color is the trim going to be around the windows? And he said, black, just like the house at 219. And that's the end of my testimony. And I hope you'll let the members of the board look at this picture, because looking at the green sheath of weather protection is an ugly picture. But if you look at it next to what it's going to look like, and the siding is on the property and will be put on whenever this case gets resolved in Mr. Hyman's favor. Mr. Fulton, are you going to give these out? Show the picture.
Mr. Fulton, do I need to remind you about Rule 9.12?
Rule 9.12 only applies to professional documents, Mr. Chairman, not photographs.
All right.
I would ask that these be admitted.
Okay.
Thank you.
They will not be. Seeing no one else who wishes to come forward, I will close the public hearing. Okay? What? Who? Oh. I don't think they have anything to say. Oh. Mr. Meekins, do you have anything to add to tonight's discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one thing to I'd like to reemphasize, and that is echoed by what you. Yeah, sorry. That is one thing that you have.
Is the mic on?
The mic is on.
All right, bring it closer, so we can hear you.
I understand. Thank you. The one thing I'd like to just emphasize is what is before the commissioners tonight is the structure, and the commission is, or the department has forwarded the application because it is over 3250 to the commission. That's the only thing I just wanted to reiterate. But I do believe Director Jakubiak has some comments he'd like to make as well.
Were you asked to provide any other information given the last hearing? Anything about average square footage of homes on 6th Street?
I did do a little investigative work by drilling down in the SDAT records for 500 6th Street. And when I say the SDAT records, I was looking at the one of the lines in those reports of the above grade living area. And I just did that out of curiosity. And of the 18 homes, excluding the subject property, 518 6th Street, SDAT reported back that there were 3 homes out of the 18 that were above the 3250 square footage break that we're basically discussing tonight. The one thing I did note is, the one thing I did want to look at was how is that broken down? And the science is kind of fuzzy in my estimation. Now there are reports that you can get from the assessor from SDAT. Of course, that probably takes a great deal of time, but they do have a definition, and I'll read a portion of that. For above grade living area, generally for residential property, the total living area of the dwellings is the area which is above ground level. Finished areas in the attic or basement are not included in the living area calculations. So that's just part of the definition. Now, again, I don't know the exact science as to how that was measured. I could only assume it would be the footprint of the building times the number of stories above ground.
So you looked at all of the homes on both sides of 6th Street?
Correct. 18
homes.
18 homes on both block faces.
Okay. And what's the average size of the square footage as reported by the Department of Assessments?
So the average worked out to be 2,179 square feet. Please.
Mr. Meekins, do you know how many of those 3 houses were built before the R2NC code was enacted?
I do not have that information, and I don't know that. That's actually an excellent point of something I didn't think through far enough. That would have been a good statistic to have.
So you can't say that they were built after R2NC went into existence.
Correct. I can't say if they were pre-existing or built after.
And the other question I have is, do you know why 27 feet was used? I noticed in the staff report on page 5 that you used 27 feet for the average height of the building, of the ridge heights on the block, instead of what was the height that was submitted in a survey by an engineer.
So the application materials that were provided by Spire Architecture is what we based our review on.
So even if you have information to the contrary, which is actually more accurate, you wouldn't necessarily use that?
It would have to be formally submitted with the application. If there were to be, if there was information, that would be compared and contrasted with the application. But the application simply had a drawing by the architect that basically had those numbers and an averaging table associated with that.
So when the July, I guess Mr. Sullivan was testifying that in July of 2024, they submitted the average ridge height according to engineering study. You took that information, just went into someone's file, or it wasn't considered by you when you made the suggestion for approval?
It was not.
Thank you.
Mr. Meekins, can you please restate the number of homes on both sides of 6th Street that were above the 3250?
Yes, sir. Out of 18 homes per ESTAT, again, there were 3 houses above the 3250 threshold that we're discussing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Chris Kubiak, Director of Planning and Zoning. Just to add some perspective and context on these ESTAT averages and assessments. ESTAT uses a methodology that is for the mass appraisals of structures within any city or jurisdiction. It calculates the square footage of the building, typically based on an aerial photograph, and then doubles it if it's a 2-story building, or if it's a 3-story building, then triples it. It does not include area within finished attics or basements.
Within what?
A finished attic or basement. So when you consider a finished attic in this particular application, to make it comparable to these averages, you'd have to eliminate that space. Yes. And so then you begin comparing apples with apples. Wait.
What about the other homes?
Those other homes that have finished attics, and many do, that area is not counted. So when we say the average is 2,400 or some buildings are 4,000 square feet, they're actually 4,000 square feet plus a finished attic. I only say that to put it in context because you're hearing evidence about SDAT and it seems to suggest that somehow this structure is comparatively or out of proportion. But using SDAT data is not the means for arriving at a clarity on this question at all. It's a fact that the Department of Planning and Zoning, in administering the 3250 rule, has approved structures that exceed 3250 routinely, historically. If you're going to judge this applicant by that standard, we would have to go back and revisit many applications and find that areas that are not habitable are in fact built and they are not counted towards square footage. Area that's not habitable within the four walls of a building, including its attic, have not been counted towards square footage. In this case, we're counting every square footage within the building. We're over counting if that's that. So again, another basis of comparison just doesn't work out as an effective and clear response.
Are you saying we should just disregard all that square footage information? Is that what I heard you just say?
You very well may. I think you certainly could. I think it'd be a fair response for a planning commission.
Yeah, because you're saying it's not relevant because. Yeah.
Just to keep in mind, just keep the balance in mind. And if you want to see the glossary and the definitions of terms and the methods for that Maryland SDAT does, I have copies here with me. Lastly, there's a lot of discussion and testimony about building height. The building height issue has been settled. This project has been built. The permit has been issued twice.
That's irrelevant, Mr. Jacoby.
No, it is not irrelevant.
Yes,
the square footage.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to our job tonight. So the fact that it was, I know from your perspective, it's relevant, but from the perspective of the commission and what we have to do, we only look at what's in the code, what's in R2NC, and our guidelines as to whether we find that this fits into the neighborhood or not. How or why or when that permit was issued is not part of what we can do. We could never find out what happened. We could never determine why it was issued or should it have been issued or whether it was issued arbitrarily and capriciously or whether it was issued properly. That's not something we can do. Okay?
And last thing I want to do is be in an argument with the chair. But I want to clarify that the issue of building height is not before the Planning Commission. Let me finish. The reason it's not before the Planning Commission is that it's the director's responsibility to approve building height. And as I said before, that decision has been made previously. And it's the question before you is simply one of square footage. The 3250 rule provides, depending on where you read in the code, that either you make a recommendation to the director on the 3250 rule or you approve it.
Would you like me to read R2NC?
And I can read it as well. But I'm just offering testimony to the commission.
If new buildings, structures, blah, 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 are proposed, their design should be compatible with the historic character and design of the area, should promote the existing spatial and visual qualities in the R2NC area, including height and scale of buildings, orientation, spacing, site coverage, and exterior features such as porches, roof pitch, and direction and landscape. Thank you.
Those conditions are set forth for the Department of Planning to administer in reviewing site designs. What is before you is the 3250 rule and whether a building over 3250 could be or should be approved. The code doesn't say what standards the Planning Commission should apply in this matter. It doesn't say that at all. It just says you should approve, or
That's a
in fact,
very-
in
excuse me.
another
Keep
section of the
going.
code, it actually says the planning commission should offer a recommendation. So there's a complexity in this code. These are also guidelines. And the matters that you just read is one of the guidelines that guidelines and standards are two different things.
I understand that very clearly, okay? But it makes no sense, as a matter of statutory construction, it makes no sense to take the introductory paragraph, which talks about new structures, enlargements, and need to go to a public hearing, review, and approval by the Planning Commission, and then to ignore those guidelines as you read further down in the statute. Height is one of them. So presumably what we're doing is we're looking at this according to the guidelines by which we should look at it. Okay? It makes no sense to say that it should just go for review and approval by the Planning Commission and then not give us any guidelines. So clearly the guidelines are part of what we're to do tonight, okay? And height is one of them.
You're not going to find agreement on this side of the table.
Okay,
At least-
that's okay.
At least I've had a chance to
We're on
present
this
to you.
side of the table.
And rightly so.
All right. All right, Mr. Fulton, you have a few brief comments to make?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
But I suspect you're not going to like what I have to say. I think Mr. Jakubiak is hitting on a critically important point, and it's essentially the question of what is the Planning Commission tasked with doing here? I'll be as brief as I possibly can. We know that the 3250 rule is set forth in 214060 C2B. We know what it says. It says any structural alterations or new structures that yield a building over 3,200 square feet are subject to public hearing, review, and approval by the Planning Commission. But what Mr. Jakubiak is getting at is that the 3250 rule makes no reference to site design criteria. It makes no reference to site design standards or site design review. Yes, they're there in that section of the code, but later under a subsection. Instead, the next subsection immediately following the 3250 rule expressly reserves these review criteria for the Department of Planning and Zoning. It provides the following guidelines shall be applied at the time of site design plan. No design plan shall be approved by the Department of Planning and Zoning until findings consistent with the following guidelines have been made. Accordingly, I think the task at hand for the Planning Commission is incredibly limited. The duty to make these findings of fact remains with the Department of Planning and Zoning. Essentially, what's before the Planning Commission right now is a very limited question of are we going to give the thumbs up or the thumbs down to a structure over 3250? It's fully reasonable for the Planning Commission to consider these guidelines. It is part and parcel with, does this house fit in Eastport? It's expected that you would look at the criteria applicable to the R2NC to make that decision. But at the end of the day, the final decision remains with the Department of Planning and Zoning. But they don't get there until they hear that recommendation of approval from you. And I think Chapter 2108 confirms this. I know you all don't have the code right in front of you, but Chapter 2108 governs decision-making bodies and officials in the context of planning and zoning. It is enabling legislation. It very literally establishes the Planning Commission, and then it expressly lists the specific and limited powers and duties of each body tasked with making final decisions in the realm of planning and zoning in the city of Annapolis. It touches on the City Council, the Board of Appeals, Planning Commission, Director of Planning and Zoning, and the Historic Preservation Commission. Chapter 210830 specifically governs the Planning Commission. Section A introduces the Planning Commission, and it states the Planning Commission is established under the land use article as may be amended from time to time. And then we get to subsection E. It spells out the limited powers and duties for this Planning Commission, and subsection C states this. On referral by the Director of Planning and Zoning on structures greater than 3,250 square feet in the R2NC zoning districts, the Planning Commission shall hold a public hearing and make recommendations. Not findings of fact, not approvals, recommendations. So when I go back to the 3250 rule under 2140, and the enabling statute says you're only supposed to be giving recommendations, that confirms nothing but the idea that the hard criteria that need to be met for any site design plan rests with the Department of Planning and Zoning. But they don't get there until the Planning Commission makes this limited 3250 rule approval. or recommendation rather. It's just two pieces of code that flatly conflict. But when they shake out, they suggest that all the criteria, all the 7 R2NC specific criteria, the general site design criteria that's referenced therein, the 12 adjacent structure criteria, critical area criteria, demolition criteria, that's not for the Planning Commission to consider. You can think about it, but findings of fact don't need to be made on those criteria by the Planning Commission. They remain with the Department of Planning and Zoning. If it were contrary, and the Planning Commission did need to make findings of fact on every single one of these criteria, we would be here for nights and nights and nights. We have specialists in the Department of Planning and Zoning who are professionally trained to do exactly that. But in this particular scenario, the only thing that the Planning Commission is truly tasked with is offering, in some sense, a recommendation, but in whatever sense, a limited approval or recommendation on nothing but, are we going to allow a house over 3,250 square feet or not? The last thing I will add.
Okay, you're not done?
This is it. There has been reference to the 2021 site design approval. A form of this application was in fact approved in 2021. It was not appealed. As we've explained, and I'm not going to get into it, there were minor modifications, but that 2021 approval happened. I think it should be part of the record.
Done?
All items that I referenced in the October hearing, which you all should have received, should be in the record. There was one form that expressly delineated how we calculate the square footage and just including every square inch. It wasn't originally part of the package that was submitted, but I too would like that included in the record.
And when was it submitted to us?
I'm not sure it was actually. It was shown virtually on Zoom.
That page?
Correct, that page.
Okay. I'm going to leave it to somebody else to determine whether it was shown. If it was shown, it's in the record. If it was not shown, Rule 912 says we can't receive it.
Understood. I got to make one clarification. Rule 912 exists, and I appreciate your thoughts on it, but it expressly applies only to professional plans. Now, what I'm offering you,
and what you were offered is not professional plans?
No, they are, but they were.
Thank you.
I hear what you're saying. Last thing I'll touch on. I too have reviewed the SDAT sheets for every single family dwelling in Eastport, specifically the R2NC. For what it's worth, there are, as I calculated, 59 dwellings over 3,250 square feet.
In where?
In the R2NC.
Okay, I find that irrelevant.
I appreciate that.
What we're looking at are the block faces of 6th Street.
Fair enough. If you'd like them, I have them.
Thank you, no.
Fair enough. It's public information. Mr. Chairman, that is the application. That's the applicant's case.
Okay.
I believe the rules.
With reference to your statutory construction, I just want to, it may be that there's a conflict within the code, but I want to say that our marching orders include public hearing, review, and approval, which implies a disapproval or approval with conditions by the Planning Commission. What happens after this date is not within our control. It may get remanded to the department. It may go, get appealed directly to the circuit court. It's going to be the decision of the people who are involved. Okay? So I'm going to instruct the commission the following. These are our guidelines. We are to make a decision based upon those guidelines and those guidelines alone. Okay? We can do, we have some flexibility here, and because the guidelines are as they are, I can definitely read them, pass them around, let you take a look at them, but I think that you've heard them. As I just want to repeat that whatever the past history is, that's not something that we can look into. We don't know what it is. It's not clearly in the record. There would be, if there were a court case, there would be all kinds of discovery as to who said what to whom and why it was said. And so we're not equipped to do that. Okay? Now, questions?
I'm just curious, is our mandate here to make a recommendation, or are we passing some sort of judgment and making a decision?
It says approval, or it says approval, which implies disapproval as well, or approval with conditions.
Well, it doesn't say we can do it, but there's nothing that says approval with conditions. It just says approval. And I agree with you 100% that we are not making a recommendation. You don't look at the preamble language and say that that governs. It's specific language of 01425 that applies here.
Well, we'll see. I'm not in a position to make that.
Well, you just did, but so I'm just saying I agree with you.
Sherry.
You did.
Might ask Sherry there.
What do you say? You mean? Yeah, I agree that we can make conditions of approval if we wish. We can approve conditioned upon A, B, or C. Okay. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
That we can make conditions. If you're so inclined to approve, you can approve with conditions. Okay. We can do. Yes, we can do any number of things. Okay, so I have said, I think, what's important here, which is that we look at whether this fits into the neighborhood context. There's certainly issues about the height, how it was measured, okay, and whether it's a high building or whether it's not a high building. Whether the size of the building whether it exceeds 3250 by an amount that's acceptable to, that requires that kind of size. I think the question of the precedent should be in the back of our minds. I think that the question of the homes in Eastport that are larger, there's no way that I personally could find any credibility in that without knowing when they were built. Because if they were built before this R2NC, it's irrelevant.
So I respectfully disagree with that. The reason why R2NC was created was to keep the character. So in fact, it was created at a moment in time in order to preserve that history. So in fact, what was built before R2NC was to maintain and lock in that nature for it. So I would say that what was built prior to the creation of R2NC was the impetus for R2NC.
Right. So, it's to limit things.
To limit it, because what happened, if you read the history, and it was submitted in one of the testimonies, is that they started seeing these McMansions and said, let's stop it. We cannot have that.
Okay.
Not preserve the McMansions that have been built. They said, let's stop.
Sure.
Right.
So okay, so let's say that that's the argument.
Yeah.
Then you're saying maybe the things that were built in the 10 or 20 years prior, but the historic nature, if we look at the homes that were built, say 100 years prior, in all of that 100 years, and we lock in and say, okay, it was to preserve the nature of that area, then I think that should matter for why R2NC was implemented.
Right.
Okay, that's a clever argument.
I don't quite get it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole reason why it was started.
Right, because they wanted the smaller homes to continue to build. Once they got out of scale, the R2 said, we have to stop.
So we can agree that, say, the homes that were built in the couple of years leading up to it, whatever number of years you want to choose, that maybe meant something, right? But the homes that were built, say, in 1910, 1920, 1930, 1940, that meets the scale that we're looking for, right? So then we look at the homes that were built, say, from 1910 to 1960, and say, does it fit within that scale? And looking at it now, then we have to decide whether or not that scale matches. But I would say, just the argument of whatever came before that doesn't matter, I disagree with. Because it is what came
I
before.
guess we're kind of
Mhm.
limited.
Yeah, right.
A couple of really objectives. One of them is height. That is the objective.
I do, and Mr. Chairman, I do want to make sure that
What is it?
so this being what was mentioned. So this is the 210830 that Planning Commission, and what it is that we are to do, as mentioned, it is found here. I've not found anything that
Mhm.
disagrees with.
Okay. Well, as I said, the code is in conflict. Okay.
And there's broad language, which is that, and then there's more specific language.
I mean,
that
this is
Cheryl
not
was
broad,
going
this
to
is
tell
very
us.
And
No, that's what the planning commission can do, but the code is more.
one of them, in
detailed.
that place, in there, it says recommendations.
And it is very specific to R2NC.
Right. And in the R2NC code itself, it says approval.
Can I see that real quick?
That's more specific than what we talked about.
That's, I want to, that I see both.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. It's more specific rule, more important than the enable. Go ahead.
Just one.
Want me?
Yep.
It's in conflict.
That's what I just want to make sure I got.
And Quinn, what were you referring to? What
Sorry,
document?
this was mentioned by
No,
the
no,
applicant's
the
lawyer.
recommendations according to that.
210830 Planning Commission, and it's specific to the Planning Commission, and it's specific to R2NC. I'll read it. So again, 210830 Planning Commission, very specific for us. E6, on referral by the Director of Planning and Zoning on structures greater than 3,250 square feet in R2NC zoning districts, the Planning Commission shall hold a public hearing and make recommendations. That's exactly what this says. Now, what he reads, if you want to read that, it is in conflict. I agree with that.
This is in the R2NC section of the code itself.
Mhm.
And what it says is that we shall hold a public hearing, review, and approval by the Planning Commission. That one says recommendations. This says approval. So there's obviously a conflict in the code, okay? My recommendation tonight is that what we do is proceed according to R2NC, and we decide whether this project is in context with the community, with the 500 block of 6th Street. And then after that, where the dust settles, that's where it shall settle.
So
It may
you-
go on remand to the department. It may go on to the court. It may, the project may get, the design may get changed.
I didn't understand your final, recommend or approve? Approve.
Well, one section of the code says
I understand. So, Counselor, how do we do? Okay.
You can approve with recommendations and still be within those two sections of the code. The 2108 enabling section, that's really an enabling section about what the Planning Commission does, but then you have the more specific one at 2140 060 2C, what is it?
R2NC.
C2C.
No,
Well, B,
it's A.
you're right. C2B2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking at it, I'm trying to test myself, but yes. Okay. So that you can do both. You can approve with recommendations.
Okay. 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 So,
Are we deliberating?
are we what?
Are we deliberating?
We are.
Ah.
Except we're quietly deliberating,
Okay.
obviously.
I'm happy to jump in. I'm never shy, Bob. I think part of the discussion is history versus ignoring history. Part of it's laws that were just passed as recently as 2 weeks ago. I'm trying not to inject my personal opinion, but I think that as a commissioner, that's at the end of the day, that's kind of what I have. I have all the facts that were presented to me. I'm not an attorney by training, but I believe that, in my personal opinion, this particular application fits the landscape and the scope of what Eastport is and has been. I believe that Mr. Hyman has followed all the rules and done most of what he's supposed to do and jumped through all the hoops that he was supposed to. He was approved. I believe some things were moved along the way. I appreciate that the public was not made aware of some of the application and some of the changes. I believe that some of this came before Mr. Jakubiak's time. It was approved. I think that Mr. Jakubiak has acted in good faith. I believe that the city has acted in good faith. I believe that the property itself fits the feel of the city. I think that there are some gray areas around the height restrictions, which I think are, I don't think that it sets precedent. I believe that today forward is precedent. I believe that this falls into a gray area of things that have been approved in the past. I feel an injustice in some regard. I can't help it. It has nothing to do with race. I'm going to have to say that out loud. It just is an injustice of decisions that have been made and fallen into some gray areas. So for me personally, I believe that the applicant has satisfied enough of what I would require to approve the application personally. That's what I have to say.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that we've heard from 3 licensed architects that they would hire an engineer to measure the ridge height on the block face, which is one of the most important things we're considering is the height. And we've heard that the average ridge height on the block face is 24.5 feet. And furthermore, I think that we are looking at the more specific, not just making a recommendation. I think we have to approve or not approve. And it's pretty simple. And I actually agree with Mr. Pline, who's not here to testify, that we're really limited in what we can do. And we really just need to look at, we can look at the other more subjective items, but I think in terms of the most objective item, which is the height, that it fails. This plan does not meet that requirement. And to go further than that is sort of beyond what we're supposed to do. But if we were to look at the character, I think there's ample evidence that it's not compatible with the historic character and site design or design in the area. Testimony that the balcony, double peak roof, and the flattened porch or flattened pitch in the rear and 6 porches and balconies are out of sync with the streetscape in the neighborhood. I think the item number 2, historic front setbacks and building heights, is not met because this height is taller than the average ridge height on the block face. The bulk and massing and scale is not similar to structures on the block face. III, the plans call for the tallest house on the block face and the largest square footage and is not in keeping with the bulk and massing or its scale. Enhancing the vernacular of the streetscape, I don't really have a comment on that, but the height is clearly out of proportion. And even with a tolerance, which it's unclear whether it's been granted or not, because I didn't see, it's an administrative decision and we didn't receive any written information about that tolerance being approved and how it was approved. And I guess in order to be approved, it would have to have been shown that it was approved because it needed necessary to provide adequate living space. And my estimation, or from the testimony we received, there was over 3,250 square feet on the first 2 levels of the house alone. So there had to be adequate living space by definition. So the granting of the tolerance is questionable in my mind, but even if it is granted, which it may have been, it really actually doesn't matter because it still exceeds the bulk and mass. Anyway, I think it's important to say that we have a limited review right in front of us, and I agree that there may be some things I feel strongly about in terms of history that we can't get into, and it's not part of our purview. But I do think that under our limited review, this is not something I could approve.
I didn't hear your last statement.
Under our limited review, what we can look at, we can't look at history. We can't look at conjecture. We can only look at the items under
I understand.
R2NC.
What was your final decision?
Oh, I can't approve this. It's
Okay.
not. I think we
Right.
could be overturned for using things outside of the scope. Yeah.
Our job is to look at how a new structure. Our job is to look at how what we have in front of us are plans. The fact that it's 70% built is frankly irrelevant to what we have to do here tonight. I repeat, the fact that a permit was issued and under what conditions a permit was issued is just simply not part of our role here. So let's just take a look at what we have proposed. We have essentially a 3-story building. The 2.5-story is the common architecture of this street. I haven't heard any testimony that there's another 3-story building on that street. I have heard testimony that every other house on that street is 2.5 stories, and that's the sort of neighborhood character of even larger areas of Eastport. It is a 3-story building. If one looks at the photographs and the elevations of the front, you can see that it's 3 stories. To call that 3rd-story addition a hallway is to test my credibility. That ain't no hallway. That 3rd floor on the addition is with a bathroom, a full bathroom, and a balcony to itself. That's living space with storage space under the eaves. And so I can't be persuaded that it's anything else other than that.
Mr. Chairman, did you call the question for the vote? I
No.
think we have 2.
I think we're still.
We're just talking.
We're just deliberating,
I
so
thought
we can
Mr.
talk.
Riley
We can
had-
ask questions.
You hadn't voted.
No. Let me have my say. In terms of height, now height is something that we need to look at, and height is important because if something towers over others, then it doesn't fit. Frankly, it doesn't fit. Now, I acknowledge that the front of this house does not exceed what's normal. It certainly exceeds the small house that was there, but that's irrelevant. But it's the height and the mass of the entire square footage, which is what we're really to look at. And to have granted a 10% increase, and the grant should be based on whether there's adequate living space, I think that 10% should not have been granted. But even if it were granted properly, this house is still considerably higher than everything else in the neighborhood on that block. Now, I'm not talking Eastport in general. I'm just talking that block because that's what our focus is, a small little neighborhood. And with reference to the measurements of those heights, my notes indicate that the architect conceded that his average of the block face was based on estimates. I frankly place some credibility in what Mr. Sullivan said tonight, which is that the table of heights that he submitted 2 weeks ago was based upon a surveyor and that he saw the surveyor using measuring instruments, whatever. They were probably some sort of laser thing that's used these days. So I have to, I personally place a credibility in that survey. And I find that the height, and it's primarily the gable, which is visible from the street, which is high, because they flattened the roof, as you'll recall, on the addition, the third floor addition in the back. That's not what bothers me. What bothers me is the entire mass and bulk of the building. This building is so far over 3,250 square feet, not counting a basement and not counting the ADU in the back. So let's take those off the table. It's still way over, no matter what kind of measurements you use. And I mean, I take as some good advice when somebody said tonight that if we set the precedent that you can go to, what is this, 3450, whatever it is, depending on how you measure it. If we go to that and to 3 stories, the next application we get is going to be 3450 and 4 stories.
Can I just interrupt there, though? But you're only talking about, this is a special case. You're not setting a precedent for this day forward. This day forward, the rules are set. Nothing is going to be approved. You're not setting a bad precedent. Everybody's not going to be able to do this, right? There is anybody who is in process or has had or otherwise, like, and this is it, right? We're having that conversation. I'm just saying, like, let's not, I don't want to conflate the issue into thinking that it's going to be something that's going to create this massive precedent of problem for us in the future. We have a rule. We're going to stick to that rule from this point forward. This particular applicant is falling into a gray area of decisions that were made prior to and rules that have changed along the way. So I want to make sure that we're not politicizing the fact that this is going to set some kind of crazy precedent, because it's not.
That's
it does set precedent
into the future, but I think that's a valid argument.
It sets precedent for sure.
So, I mean, my feeling is that the building is big, and it's that third floor that's really the problem. If that third floor were taken off, there would not be a problem. We would not all be spending our evening here and the hours that we've spent looking over these plans. So, if you're thinking about things, it's that third floor. There's nothing else, and there's nothing else that's really takes it over the line for me. Mr. Bellamy? Okay.
Bob, I just want to ask a question. So it's your contention that we do not look at what was approved in the past. We're just looking at the plans as we get them right now. I think that's important because many of us want to look at what happened in the past. Our hearts are saying, let's look at what happened in the past. But we're really just looking at the plans right now as they stand today.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
That's true. We are looking at the plans as they stand today. But at the same time, you know, in the Zoom meeting, I asked point blank, was this home built as it was approved in 2023? Yes, it was. So that is relevant.
It's relevant.
It is relevant.
But it's not what we can base our decision on.
Okay.
I mean, we can, but I'm just saying we'll get overturned.
But I can tell you what I'm basing my decision on. I have a son that plays tennis at Safe Harbor. And I drive by that house probably 3 days a week for the last couple of years. I've seen the house. It is within the character of the neighborhood. To say it's not is wrong.
Wait, maybe you shouldn't say you saw the house because we're not allowed to look at the house unless
I'm
we
sorry
go.
that I drove by the house and I saw the house, but I did see the house.
Uh-oh. Shoot.
Look, it's a small
For
town.
2 years, I've been driving by that house.
It's a small town.
I apologize.
How can you not drive by?
All right.
How can we not know what's going on?
I live by it, and I intentionally don't go by it because then we can.
You live in the
be
neighborhood.
accused.
Nobody's going to.
No. I get it. I'm just saying it's.
All right.
Can I?
It'll settle down. No, he's not done.
I'm done.
Can I get one more question in here? Mr. Chairman.
Can we hear from Mr. Cummings?
Hi. So I've heard a lot of people talk about rules and that we can't take the approval and the history and these other things. And one of them is also then that means we cannot also take what the house currently looks like in real life, right? So any measurement of the height of a built structure should not also count then, right? And hear me out, because we would see the plans, right? Enforcement and compliance is not in the purview of this body, which means that if plans came before us and we approved them, the city approved them, and then something was built and it was built outside of what was approved, this body doesn't do the enforcement and the compliance, right? So when someone goes through and they measure and say, well, it's too high, right? That's not something that we should consider. That's not our job, in my opinion, because we would not be approving or disapproving or recommending the structure after it's built, right? We are looking at it with the plans and seeing what the plans look like and measuring that against the code. So any measurement of what it currently is, I don't think matters, because enforcement and compliance is not part of this body. So if it is built in a non-compliant, non-conforming manner, that's an enforcement issue, right? So after it's built, we approve the plans. So looking at the plans and looking at it, the size of it is in relation to the entire R2NC. The height is in regards to the block face, right? Now, feel free to show me where that's different. But the size is in relation to R2NC, the bulk. The height is in relation to the block face.
No.
Are you seeing different from that?
Protection of the architectural massing, composition, and styles, as well as neighborhood scale and character.
Okay, so when you define neighborhood and when I define neighborhood,
well, it goes on and talks about block face.
Well, block face and neighborhood are not the same thing.
Okay.
Right? Block face and no one I know says this side of the block is our neighborhood, but that side of the block is a different neighborhood.
I agree with.
Right?
It should be the entire street,
so
both sides.
Neighborhood and block face, those are not the same. They do not have the same meaning. So, okay, when we look at the size, the bulk, is that meeting what is the intent and the code and what we have in terms of the table? And we go, okay, it's larger than 3250. So then we have to review it. Is it otherwise somehow against the neighborhood, right? I'm looking at it and I don't see the bulk as an issue.
Oh, right? Can I read it to you?
Yeah, good.
All new structures, blah, 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 shall have bulk, massing, and scale similar to the structures or buildings on the block face.
Okay. So then we look at that and looking at so it's larger than the square footage of most other homes on the block face, right? But it's similar, not the same, is the word. Okay, so now we have to decide what is the legal definition of similar. And I look at the size of the structures on the block face. I see that as similar. Where I have an issue is the height, right? That's where I'm saying, okay, so now this height, I'm looking at it, and what I would say is that it comes down to what I'm looking in front of me, the plans and what was submitted, and then what was submitted to us, not the current measurements, but what was submitted, right? Because that's what I'm looking at, and that's what I think meets the definition of what we're supposed to look at. And I go, okay, well, it meets that. It's on the high end, but it meets that.
Mr. Chair, I took the privilege of driving down that block, and the way the discussions have been going on about the size of this house, I was expecting that house to jump out at me, to be so huge that I had to slow down and read the addresses of all the houses to find out where this house was. Not from sight, but I saw the number of the house. Oh, that's it. And it seemed to fit within, to me at least, it's from my eyesight, from the nature of the block. It wasn't a huge monstrosity that just looked like a house on a hill that was so big and out of character. It was at night, but I still had a good look at it.
All right, has everybody had any further need for discussion? I would like to make a comment to everybody who's been here tonight. I want to, we'll talk a little bit more, but I want to thank everybody for, this is contentious. And I want to thank everybody for being basically really very polite and very civil. And you can see that we're taking this seriously and have done our homework, I hope. And so I want to thank you for participating in this as well as we have done tonight. Thank you. All right. Any more? Anything further? Further.
I just want to double check that no one has to recuse themselves if they've seen the house, because you were talking about our old procedure. No, I'm just saying, because I did too. So it would mean all of us would have to recuse ourselves.
No, we have faced this before.
And we have to go as a group, and we didn't, which is fine.
Look, this is a small town. This is not New York City.
Right.
There's no way you can not go down 6th Street at some point and just happen to see what's going on.
Just want to double check.
If we were to take a field trip, okay, as a group, then there's some very clear rules in the Maryland Code as to how we're to conduct ourselves if there were to be a real field trip. And we have done that. We did at Providence Point. So the fact that we have seen it is not something which is prohibitive or prohibited. Pardon me. Okay,
Thank you for clarifying.
I'm going to call for the vote. All those now, there are several options: approval, not approval, approval with recommendations. Hold on. Okay. Does anybody have a motion here?
I move to
set us going.
Move to approve without conditions.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any amendments to that, which would be conditions to the approval? Okay. I will make a motion that if it's approved, that it be approved without the 3rd story.
I second.
Wait a minute.
Hold on.
Well,
There's. Thank you. There's been a motion. There was already one motion.
Yeah, on the plan.
You have to vote on the first motion.
Okay. All right. On advice of counsel, I withdraw that motion. Okay. But I want to say that it's out there. Huh?
I move to approve without conditions.
I second.
Without conditions.
Okay, that's already done.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's 3. Nays?
Were there 3 or were there 4?
Nay.
I didn't hear you.
3.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I'm a nay.
And myself, nay. All right. The motion passes. Okay.
No. If you look at the plan,
We're ready. The city council Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, don't make us come back. Huh? He is? Okay. Yeah, rubber stamp.
So was that memo? Was that memo?
You can't tell.
That's so crazy.
Everybody for.
I know. Just across from this court. I'm like, you can see me. What I was doing is making a recommendation.
I'm just making a recommendation. You're maybe asking for your soda.
Take your own sit. Like, you didn't take a meeting.
All right.
When I heard recommendations, I was like, okay, this is fucking so much easier than I thought. Hey, that was appreciate it.
Similar.
But you had the.
It's I'm looking through it. And it's like, okay, so you are owned because you have to examine it as if it's not already built. That means that you can't. It means like then if I'm examining it as a not already built, then any measure you have of it right now, I'm not carrying it.
That's right. That's good. That's
So I'm just looking
mutually
at
exclusive. You're not
looking at
respecting
information
this.
gained through the
Mention the fact that like, did the city commission that?
It's honestly
Survey? I mean, it's just some random like neighbor that had a that thing.
that has a
Like, it was even a conversation. Like, oh, sorry, like you can't admit that. It's ridiculous. And that was like, you guys just went totally in contravention of city code. I'm like, no, I didn't. He's like, and so did planning. I'm like, well, planning's like, they're the word, man. We're just making recommendations. And I think I made the right recommendation at the end of the day. And I made it clear, like, we're not setting precedent. This is bullshit about the precedent. I hate that shit. That's like, oh, in the future. You better do this now because in the future, there's nothing else we can talk about.
Eastern Avenue. Thank you. Well, good evening. It's Kim Burke, Senior Planner with the City of Annapolis. This is Site Design Review 2025-0042. This is a major site design plan review for the proposed vacant lot at the southwest corner of West Street and Colonial Avenue. It's a proposed 3-story mass timber building with first floor commercial and second and third story apartments, 3 units per floor, 6 units total. This project was previously approved in 2022, and the applicant is now just asking for, I'm sure they're going to go over their plan, but basically the same plan that was previously approved. In looking at the plan, the previous plan and the new plan, the only differences that I found were the front facade facing West Street. It looked like there were 2 large openings where they were doors, and then on the right-hand side was a window. It looks like they've made them all uniform, larger openings. And in the site plan, it appears that the grease trap is moved from West Street to Colonial Avenue, and they are the only revisions that I see on the plan.
What was the second one? I couldn't hear that.
What was the second revision?
The grease trap is moved from West Street to Colonial Avenue. Nothing you can see above ground.
Grease trap moved.
Yes.
Okay.
But this is basically the exact same plan as before.
Okay. All right. Any questions of staff? Applicant?
Thomas Hanna and my partner.
Make sure that the little green light's on.
Cool. Thomas Hanna and my partner Jody Danik, back in front of you guys. Approved 3 years ago. Very simply, we were in our 4th revision, and unbeknownst to ourselves, we did let it expire. So here we are again. Again, as staff has stated, nothing has changed. A few facade changes on the front, and we did move after a site review, survey. We did move the grease trap to Colonial Avenue.
Okay. What held it up for 3 years?
That's an excellent question, Chair.
We just submitted our 5th rendition of plans.
You what?
We just submitted our 5th rendition of plans, so our 4th revision. There are some issues with the bordering building, which was built in 2004 and 5, making sure that was built to code, to fire code, which obviously it was, but we had to, after a denial, go cut a little hole open and show that. Just little things like that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I just wanted to add to that. This project has been and still is in the building permit review process, and they are so close to actually getting their building permit. Of course, we can't issue a building permit until this approval is re-upped. And we don't have the flexibility in the code to grant an extension when an applicant allows it to expire. The remaining issues relate to the health department because it is a mixed-use building and a restaurant. So they're very close. But this is a pro forma type of.
So we've learned our lesson that things need to go before the commission that need to go before the commission.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
No argument here, Mr. Chair.
All right. Are there any questions of?
I have a quick question. I remember being really impressed by the fact that it was an environmentally great building, and it was being built with like wood timbers, which is not done anymore. Is that still the plan?
Yes.
Yeah, we're trying to maintain all of that original component.
Yeah.
Congratulations. It sounds like a great building.
Yeah, we're trying to get it built.
I only want to ask the chairman why we didn't start with this one.
Any other questions?
Tom and I said we were going to say 15 words or less. So
I missed that last comment. Commissioner Rowley. Oh. What is the building next to this vacant lot?
Lemongrass.
Okay, that's it. I thought so. Okay, thank you.
I'll call the question. Our deliberations, close the public hearing. There's nobody here to testify. For those of you who are not here, this was a very interesting presentation. How it's built, I don't know that we have much to say about it, but the way that it fits on the corner and what they're going to do with it and so forth and so on. It was a very interesting presentation, and we learned a lot about wood building.
I also think that it fits very nicely into our 2040 comprehensive plan.
What?
Our 2040 comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
I think it fits everything that we're trying to get done in the city.
Yeah. Okay.
I make a motion to approve or reapprove this.
Second.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right.
I'd like to thank
Cut the trees.
thank you all for hearing us this late at night in front of everything. And
Thank you.
thank you very much
You're welcome.
for planning and zoning. I'm going to drive by the house.
You're not allowed to.
Bob, yeah.
Bob just grabbed his bag and about to head out the door.
Oh, do I hear a motion for adjournment if there's nothing?
Motion for
Is there
adjournment?
anything else?
Second.
Sure?
Second.
Nothing else.
All right, guys are talked out. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
He did, yes. And second.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No.